Members of the public who are joining us this evening, we do have comment speaker cards up by the east lectern. If you would like to fill out a comment card for any of the agenda items, feel free to grab one of those comment cards and drop it off right up here at the front. Thank you. Chair, we are ready to begin.
Okay, I think we're ready to go. So I'd like to call the meeting of February 27th, 2025, the Planning Commission to order, and if we could please have roll.
Thank you. Commissioner Carter?
Here.
Commissioner Sisko? Here. Commissioner Horton?
Here.
Commissioner Pardo?
Here.
Commissioner Sanders?
Here.
Vice Chair Duggan?
Here.
Chair Weeks?
Here.
Let the record reflect that all commissioners are present.
Okay, thank you. We don't have any remote participation. Approval of minutes. We have the minutes from December 12th, 2024. Are there any changes, corrections, additions? Okay.
I'll abstain because I wasn't at that meeting.
Thank you. So we'll move on to public comments on approval of the minutes. If you have any comments, please make your way to the podium. Seeing no one, we'll go ahead and close the public comments on the minutes, and we'll move on to public comments on non-agenda matters. If you'd like to make a comment on something that is not on the agenda, please make your way to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes, and we'll start with Mr. DeWitt.
And give me one moment while I bring up the timer.
Thank you.
And that's the most important thing of all, the timer.
So you'll see it as you know, Dwayne.
I liked it when it was up here and I could just see those seconds tick off easily, right down to the last one.
Okay, there you go.
Hello, my name is Dwayne DeWitt. I'm from Roseland. I want to thank all you commissioners for your volunteer efforts, and I'm glad that you're paying attention to the better things for I'll restate that, for Santa Rosa and Roseland in the future. So I'm here to point out that the active transportation plan that's currently being discussed at various boards and commissions will be coming forward and go to the City Council, and that active transportation plan should specifically address greenways and bikeways along creeks, especially such as Roseland Creek. Many of you may not know, but many years ago, land was purchased along Roseland Creek with taxpayers' money between the streets McMinn Avenue and Burbank Avenue, specifically to put in a bike path. The actual year for the close of escrow, 2011. So 14 years later, we still don't have any bike path. And it's not because of the public. It's not because of advocates such as myself who've put forward the admitted superior environmental alternative to the city's environmental impact report for Roseland Creek Park. And we're all about getting that bike path and that greenway in. The dilemma is getting, one might say, the monolithic public machine to move forward and do something. Now, we're not going to get federal money anymore, probably. We're going to basically spend the next 4 years under the wrath of the musketeers and the regressives that have taken over the federal government. They're not going to want to help us. So we shouldn't be looking for money from them. And the EPA may go away. They're going to try to gut the National Environmental Protection Act. If that happens, they'll take away the Endangered Species Act. So that's not going to help us in any way. California, though, has a Department of Natural Resources, and it has a water department, and they've got money. And by the way, we spend more than $80 billion in California taxes going to the federal government. So I'm hoping that you might advocate that we keep that money. As long as they're not going to help us and they're going to withhold money, we shouldn't give them our money, and we should use our money here in Santa Rosa. With that in mind, as the active transportation plan goes forward, please advocate for the bikeway greenway along Roseland Creek, and it doesn't need to be paved. Many of the roadways along the Sonoma County Water Agency creeks aren't paved, and people bicycle on them all the time. So don't be held up because you think you need some asphalt. You don't need to pave over anything. Just go ahead and let the community be involved in making the Roseland Creek Bikeway Greenway a reality. I can't stay for the rest of your mission, but you have a good day.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to make a comment on an item that is not on the agenda? Seeing no one, I'll go ahead and close this public comment period and move on to item 6, our statement of purpose. The Planning Commission is charged.
Chair, that's going to be item 5.
Oh, I'm sorry. It says 5 right here, and I'm reading 6.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 5, 5.1 Statement of Purpose. The Planning Commission is charged with carrying out the California planning and zoning laws in the city of Santa Rosa. Duties include implementing of plans, ordinances, and policies relating to land use matters, assisting in writing and implementing the general plan and area plans, holding public hearings and acting on proposed changes to the zoning code, zoning map, general plan, tentative subdivision maps, and undertaking special planning studies as needed. So with that, we'll move on to item 5.2. Are there any commissioner reports? Commissioner Sanders?
So I have the challenge of my notes being so small, so bear with me. Today at the Waterways Advisory Committee, we welcomed a new chair in that Steve Rabinowitz, our longstanding chair since the WAC was even formed. As a matter of fact, he wrote the basically the governing documents for the Waterways Advisory Commission. So he's stepping down to enjoy being a granddad and to engage in other endeavors. And we are going to now have Art Dykey, who is our new chair, has been on the commission for about 8 years with a background in water quality, and I just learned that he was a meteorologist. I just learned that today. Really cool. And our new vice chair is Kevin Shea, who's a Roseland, what he calls a Roseland adjacent neighbor, an ex-JC board member, and a CPA. Some of the other things that we talked about was that we had a great success with Creek Week. We had 400 volunteers show up to clean up our local creeks. What's amazing to me, and I'm always blown away by this, they took out year-to-date, 1,200 cubic yards of garbage out of the creeks. So to put that in context, a pickup truck holds 2, maybe 3. So that's 400 pickup trucks worth of trash that we pulled out of the creeks. I think we can do better and reducing that amount because it's just so important that we keep our creeks healthy. Another thing that we talked about was the cannery project the new cannery project is now taking applications. They're starting to fill up, so people are starting to live there, which is great because for one of the missions of the Waterways Advisory is to make our creeks and the paths that Mr. DeWitt was talking about next to our creeks a safe place. And when you have eyes on the creek through a large development like the cannery project, it's really good. The Colgan Creek restoration is out to bid, and that's going to be a $6.5 million project. It's one of the larger ones in Santa Rosa. And if you want to get involved with restoring the creeks, getting a crew together to clean a creek, all you have to do is visit Creek at Santa Rosa City, srcity.org, and there'll be all kinds of opportunities for you to jump in there and clean up a creek. And that's it.
Thank you. Any other? Well, I'd like to take this time to introduce our newest commissioner, Miles Horton, recently appointed by City Council member Caroline Benuelos. Welcome, Miles. Would you like to say a few words?
Sure, thank you. Miles Horton, very excited to be here. I would just like to extend my thanks to Councilmember Banuelos for appointing me and to the chair and city staff for helping me get started and making me feel welcome here. So very excited to serve and looking forward to getting into it.
Thank you. I would like to mention a couple of things. I think we've all received some correspondence from the city clerk's office about some required training that we are required to do. For those of us going to the Planning Commissioners Conference next week, the ethics training is being offered on Wednesday morning, so that would be a time to get that out of the way. And then the harassment training is being offered on Friday at 10:15 after the this conference closes. And then we also received correspondence from the Deputy City Clerk about some required training on the Brown Act. So hopefully you've all responded on that. So with that, if there are any, I'll open the public comment portion for Commissioner reports. If there's anybody who'd like to make a comment, please make your way to the podium. Seeing no one, I will close that. And we'll move on to item 5.3, which is the election of vice chair. Commissioner Duggan is currently the vice chair. Is there a nomination?
Yes, if I can.
Yes.
I'd like to renominate Commissioner Duggan for the position of vice chair.
Thank you. And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so well, first of all, will you accept?
Yes, thank you. It's been a very easy task this last year. I don't think you missed a meeting.
Good. Thank you. So with that, we'll go ahead and have a vote on that. It was moved by Commissioner Sanders and seconded by Commissioner Cisco.
First, we'll open it up to public comment.
And please, yes, thank you. If you have any public comments on this item, please make your way to the podium. Seeing no one, I will go ahead and close that and bring it back to you, Madeline.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Carter?
Aye.
Commissioner Cisco?
Aye.
Commissioner Horton?
Aye.
Commissioner Pardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Sanders?
Aye.
Vice Chair Duggan?
Aye.
Chair Weeks?
Aye. So that passes with 7 ayes. And I will go ahead and also I'll be reappointing Commissioner Sanders to the Waterways Advisory Committee if you'll accept that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And so with that, are there any public comments on the appointment of Commissioner Sanders to the Waterways Advisory Committee? Seeing no one, we'll go ahead and close that public comment and bring it back to department report. Item 6.
Yes, thank you, Chair Weeks, members of the Commission. Jessica Jones, Deputy Director of Planning. First, I would like to take a moment to welcome Commissioner Horton, to the Commission. It's extremely exciting to have you on board, and we look forward to working with you and with some of the exciting things we have coming up here. So in addition to that, I wanted to remind the commission that one of the exciting things we do have coming forward soon is our general plan update. We are working to finalize the date that is going to come to you, but it is within the next couple of months. It will be before you, and we'll give you ample opportunity ahead of time to know what that date is once we've solidified the specific date. But in the meantime, I wanted to make you aware of a couple of meetings that we have coming up that is related. As part of the general plan update process, we will be bringing forward a proposed missing middle housing ordinance. And we are doing a study session with our design review board on March 20th to introduce that item and receive feedback from the board. Ultimately, that will come to you as part of the general plan update as a large package, but just wanted you to be aware of that. And then on March 24th at 5:30 here in the council chambers, we're going to be holding a community meeting on the missing middle housing ordinance to provide another opportunity just for the community to go over what that is and how it might impact them. And then lastly, there was one other thing I was going to mention, which has now slipped my mind. So I will end it with that. So thank you.
Thank you. Will the missing middle meeting that's taking place in the chambers, is that going to be on Zoom, do you think?
I'm not 100% sure, but I think the answer is yes,
Okay.
but we will certainly get that information. And I just did remember the other thing I wanted to mention, just kind of piggybacking on the training opportunities at the upcoming conference that you mentioned, Chair Weeks. We also have, and hopefully you guys have all received invitations from our deputy, or sorry, not our deputy, but our city clerk, Dina Manis. There is a boards, commissions, and committee orientation on March 11th at 4 p.m. here in the council chambers. I know it'll be a repeat for some of you, but a lot of really great, useful information is provided in that. And for our newer commissioners, I really recommend attending that.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open the public comment portion on staff report. If there's anybody wanting to make public comment on what Ms. Jones just said, please make your way to the podium. Seeing no one, I will go ahead and close that, and we will bring it. We have no statements of abstentions, no presentations, no consent items, no report items. So we'll move right into our scheduled item. It's 11.1, public hearing, massage ordinance, municipal code amendments, and adult entertainment business zoning code amendment. And as Ms. Brown, I previously mentioned, if you would like to make a public comment on this when that time comes, if you could fill out one of the cards that's up there at the podium, that would be handy for us. So with that, we'll turn it over to Mr. Kirk and Mr. Osborne.
Thank you, Chair, and bear with us as we pull up the presentation. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the Commission. Gabe Osborne, Director of Planning and Economic Development. And joining me today is Lou Kurt, who is our Assistant Chief Building Official, also manages our Code Enforcement Division. So the item before the Commission at this point in time, really two distinctly different items that we are joining together, really more for an efficiency standpoint. So we will be talking about our proposed regulation and ordinance changes that govern massage establishments. And as a companion to that, we'll be talking about some minor code changes to our municipal code that address adult entertainment. Those two are separate. We're not proposing today to enforce massage as adult entertainment. This is simply due to efficiencies, and we've identified areas where we can package things and move together. So before I hand the presentation over to Mr. Kirk, I'd like to really just point out a few general overview points of how we got to where we are today. Much of the regulation that you will see is really focusing on the illicit nature that can occur in massage establishments. This regulation really focuses on controlling that illegal use that sometimes occurs in commercial space that is framed and approved as massage. We have heard quite a bit of concern from the community over the last year through our enforcement efforts in both Santa Rosa Police and Code. We also really have documented evidence of illegal activities such as prostitution and human trafficking occurring in some of these business types. So what you're seeing today from really a policy standpoint is attempting to address that. And much of the regulation that comes along with that causes avoidance, and this has been proofed out in other jurisdictions. The balance that we have here is that we're also adding the regulation to legitimate businesses that make up the fabric of our small business community. So really all the work that staff has put into it, and there's been a lot of hours, is to really balance that out to the best of our ability to ensure as we're creating the regulation that we have a process in place where our small business community can meet that. One of the components, because what you'll hear today is we are creating a permit path. As we create a permit path, that does involve fees. That is not included in today's agenda. The fees are the purview of the City Council. But it is important to note that our next step is going to the City Council on March 4th. So for members of the community that want to review those fees or planning commissioners that want to review those fees, they are currently attached to the agenda. Our intention with those fees was to keep them as low as possible at full cost recovery. So we changed our process from an efficiency standpoint to lower it to alleviate some of the impacts that large fees can have to those business types. So with that, I'd like to hand the presentation over to Mr. Kurt, and he will go through the PowerPoint.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Chair Weeks, Vice Chair Dugan, and members of the Commission. Welcome, Commissioner Horton. It's good to see you aboard. I'm here tonight, as Gabe said, to present proposed amendments to the city's massage ordinance, which is an integral part of the larger initiative of adopting a new establishment ordinance and cleaning up some codes. This ordinance is crucial for addressing concerns surrounding illicit massage activities within our community. So to give you some background, since early 2024, the city has experienced a rise in community concerns regarding illicit massage establishments and their associated negative community impacts, including human trafficking and threats to public safety. In response, the city committed to a multi-pronged approach designed to reduce and eventually eliminate the incidence of illicit massage uses. The first component of this effort consisted of a series of inspections and enforcement actions jointly undertaken by our police department and our code enforcement personnel. These continuing efforts have already resulted in the successful closure of some massage businesses and the actual rescue of victims of human trafficking. The second component of this effort consisted of a comprehensive redesign of the city massage regulations, the subject of which comprises the greater part of the item being presented to you tonight. As further background, our current massage business ordinance, enacted in 2010, was primarily intended to be business license and revenue oriented, with comparatively minimal regulation and enforcement. This framework is outdated, particularly given continuing changes in state law, which have further misaligned the city's ordinance with existing best practices. Currently, staff estimates that approximately 130 massage businesses operate within our city limits, and it is not known how many are operating outside of permitting regulations. The map displayed in the background of this slide shows where concentrations of these businesses are clustered within the city. Communication and outreach have been a central part of the city's effort to respond to this issue, starting with the initial community meetings with the public in April and May of 2024, a public safety subcommittee meeting in October of 2024, and a community meeting with the massage industry in January of this year. We've continued that outreach and communication. A city webpage for massage was created, and drafts of the ordinance have been widely circulated upon request. Staff will continue to accept input from the industry and the public through the end of this month. Getting into the ordinance, we recognize the need for a comprehensive solution, and we've undertaken a complete redesign of the massage establishment ordinance. The objective of the new regulations prioritizes the safety and well-being of our residents and visitors by realigning the code and bringing the city into conformity with current state regulations. It provides robust enforcement tools to end the proliferation of illicit massage uses, and it supports the success of existing legitimate businesses by balancing regulatory requirements against the needs of those uses and minimizing the negative impacts against them. The proposed ordinance will be codified in Title 20, Chapter 20-49 of the City Code, Standards for Specific Land Uses. The existing massage regulations located in Chapter 6-32 are proposed to be eliminated through the adoption of this ordinance. Key features of the new ordinance include state registration, where a massage therapist must be registered with the California Massage Therapy Council, or CAMTech, city certification, where massage establishments must register and receive city approval, demonstrating compliance with ordinance requirements, including operational standards and inspections. Flexibility, allowing enforcement staff to incorporate a balanced approach in such areas as targeted inspections, where inspections will be conducted on an as-needed basis only. Exempted categories where certain businesses are released from regulation, and administrative adjustments where director-level adjustments may be possible in certain circumstances. And lastly, there's a graduated enforcement plan, where the ordinance establishes tiered violation categories and corresponding enforcement actions, ranging from warnings to certificate revocation. The new ordinance will require related zoning code amendments, specifically to the land use tables, permit review procedures, and definitions, which I will cover in the next slide. Staff is proposing the following zoning code amendments in order to ensure clarity and internal code consistency with the proposed new ordinance. The first of these amendments involves two land use tables, Table 2-6, which is contained in Section 20-23030, and Table 2-10, which is contained in Section 20-24030. These tables and sections establish land use and permitting requirements, respectively, for the commercial and industrial zones. Staff proposes two key changes within Table 2-6. The first change, and this will be by a separate resolution, is to require conditional use permit approval for adult entertainment businesses across all listed zones. The second change is to add a new classification of massage-related use as a permitted use across all listed zones, subject to zoning clearance and the provisions of the new Chapter 20-49 being proposed. The identical two key changes are proposed for Table 2.10, to require, again by separate resolution, conditional use permit approval for adult entertainment businesses across all listed zones, and to add a new classification of massage-related uses as a permitted use in the BP and IL zones only, subject to zoning clearance and the provisions of the new Chapter 20-49 being proposed. Now, I know Gabe touched on this, but I want to take a moment here to be absolutely clear, in no uncertain terms, that the inclusion of adult entertainment businesses in this discussion about massage regulation is solely for the purpose of establishing distinct regulatory frameworks and is not in any way a comparison of adult businesses to legitimately operating massage establishments. Quite the opposite is true. The proposed changes aim to create separate permitting and review processes, ensuring that these business categories are clearly differentiated and understood as entirely unrelated to one another. Moving forward with the rest of the amendments. Staff is also proposing amendments to Section 20-50.010, subsection A, and Section 20-52.060 to allow for director-level review of administrative adjustments, providing avenues of relief for certain categories of massage-related uses. Lastly, staff is proposing two amendments to Section 20-70.020 to update zoning code definitions. Specifically, the first amendment is a new entry for massage-related uses under Section 20-70.020M, and the second is a modification of an existing definition for business/service, a subsection of the office definition contained within Section 20-70.0200, by striking specific language from that pertaining to massage therapists. This brings me to staff's recommendation for this item, which is that the Planning Commission recommend, by two resolutions, the proposed changes to the zoning code and the presentation of the draft ordinance to the City Council. Following the Commission's endorsement, it is anticipated that the draft ordinance will be presented to the City Council on March 4th, with the second reading occurring on March 18th, and the ordinance effective date occurring 30 days later. Lastly, it is worth noting that the ordinance provides massage establishments a full 180 days after the effective date to bring their establishments into compliance. And before I turn it over to you for questions, I did find in the 11th hour today there are two minor points of errata that I want to correct, and I just wanted to bring them to your attention. Under section 20-49.090B4, it makes reference to section 20-49.0903, and I'm going to ask you if I can change that to B3. Similarly, in section 20-49.090D2, I would ask you that the reference it makes to 20-49.0903 be changed to 20-49.090D3. The devil is in the details. In closing, I would like to thank the Commission for their time and attention and support. Staff are prepared to answer any questions you may have and provide further information as needed. And this concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me. Are there any clarifying comments for Mr. Kirk before I open the public comment? And then I know, at least for me, and I'm probably a number of us, we have other questions that we'll ask, that I'd like to ask after the public comments. So, Commissioner Sanders.
Just one clarifying question, and great job, by the way. You guys are rock stars, I tell you. Can you give me an example of what an adult entertainment business is?
Actually, I think that Ms. Jones could probably give a much better answer to that question than I could.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Sanders. Great question. So adult entertainment businesses are, and I will, as I'm talking, I'm going to try and look this up, but I can give you an example. We had one recently that came into the city that wanted to locate in one of our industrial districts, and they wanted to do a cabaret. So I think it's any sort of entertainment where there are, I think the way it's worded is that there are some sort of body parts. Anyway, I can pull up the definition. Do you have that there? Okay. Give me one moment here. And luckily it's an A, so it's at the beginning of our definitions. So a business based on materials or performances that depict, describe, or relate to specified sexual activities or specified anatomical areas as defined in the city code. And then we have a specific section of our code that outlines regulations for adult entertainment businesses. The reason that this is coming before you now is there is a lack of clarity in the code on what the permitting requirements are for adult entertainment businesses. So in the commercial and industrial section of the code, there is a land use table that identifies whether a use is permitted by right, whether it needs a minor use permit, a major use permit, or it's not allowed at all. We have some uses that have an S, which means that there are specific regulations that you go find another code section to see those. In this instance, so the adult entertainment businesses do utilize that S. It takes you to the adult entertainment business section of our code that outlines specific regulations, but it does not outline the permit that is required for those businesses. So it's not clear what permit is required. So that's why we're bringing this forward. It was an opportunity to correct that in our code with this item that was coming before you, but it's unrelated to the massage. So if that helps.
And just for clarity, would a theater company who, does a burlesque show, I don't know, I'm kind of making things up as I go, would they be now considered adult entertainment? Would they have to change would they have to change anything with the city with this new ordinance?
It would be, so what we're doing with this ordinance is adding the permit requirement, which requires a major use permit. So if there's an existing theater that was approved and did not meet our definition of adult entertainment when it was established. Now they want to bring in some new entertainment that meets this definition, then yes, they would need to obtain a conditional use permit in order to do that additional piece to their business.
You said that there were actual rescue of traffic people,
Human trafficking.
human traffic people in Santa Rosa?
Yes, sir.
Wow. That's disheartening, but good that we've made that happen and stopped it. Thanks.
Any other questions for clarification purpose? Vice Chair?
Yeah, this is on the massage side, and I sent you an email asking about examples of administrative adjustments. So I'm assuming if it's like in the context of a home-based massage business, like one masseuse and one client at a time, that maybe an administrative adjustment would be like they don't have a requisite parking off-street. So at the director level, it'd be like that's okay, you don't need to provide extra parking because you've got street frontage parking. Is that what you had in mind?
It's a little more nuanced than that. They would still be subject to existing provisions of the zoning code. In the case of that we're talking about here, it would be a home occupation. And if they're actually having people coming in, it would be a non-exempt home occupation. So that would require, as a prerequisite to our even considering a massage establishment permit, a minor use permit. And now there may be some way for us to combine those processes. We're still in the early stages of developing this. So that's certainly an option that we could do within the scope of this ordinance. But there would be additional planning considerations for a home occupation before we would really get into the nuance of the establishment certification.
Commissioner Cisco?
Yeah, this is a clarification. I noticed that under 20-49-030, under the required certification for local establishment registration, it's 180 days. But under -49-050, operational requirements, 120 days from the establishment of the ordinance. So is there a reason for that difference, or is that a typo?
That is probably a Scrivener's error. Could you give me that second section again, please?
The second section is, it's the operational requirements section, 20-49-050, and it says 120 days, whereas the other one says 180 days from the...
My copy shows 180 days, so maybe
Maybe I got an old copy or something?
perhaps so,
Okay.
yes.
I also show 120 days.
Okay, but as long as there's not a reason for the difference, it's just a mistake?
We were sitting at 120 days for quite a while, and then
Okay.
we changed it relatively lately to 180. So perhaps there's a version problem here,
Okay,
but we do have it as 180.
it's going to be 180?
That's correct.
Great, thank you.
So that, just for your reference, that's on page 11.
Yeah, I'm looking at it
Okay.
right now. The copy I'm looking at, which is a printout of the actual reso, is 180 days.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm
Okay.
sorry for that
That's okay.
confusion.
So with that, I will go ahead and open the public hearing on this item. If you have comments, please make your way to either side of the podiums, and you'll have 3 minutes. If you have, actually, I'll go ahead and call first the 2 people who have submitted the speaker cards, but that's not necessary. So, so the first person is Mike Cook. I'm going to go ahead and officially open the public hearing on this.
Hi, good afternoon. Mike Cook. I'm a business owner in town and a massage therapist. My massage parlor is a neighbor of mine in my business. About a year and a half ago, they opened without any, we weren't told, we didn't know. It was a vacant building. They did a whole bunch of work on the building without permits, and I reached out to the city and let them know, and what I heard back was that the massage parlor was allowed in the zoning by right, and they are allowed to be open, I believe, from, I think it was like 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. without any use permit, without any hearing or any notification of anyone around them. After that occurred, I started noticing businesses around my office, and I've counted them, and within a half mile of my office, there's 32 massage parlors. And you'll notice them as you drive through town if you go after dark and you see all the open signs, the massage neon signs, neon lights, flashing lights. You see them on College Avenue, 4th Street, in neighborhoods, etc. So as time went by and they continued to operate next to my office is open 8 to 5:30 every day, which I'm actually there a lot longer. I own the business. So I'm there past 9, 10 o'clock sometimes. And when I'm leaving, I'd say 80 to 90% of the time, their open sign is still on after 9 o'clock, after 10 o'clock. I left a couple days ago, around 11. The open sign was still on. There was cars in the parking lot. And in the past, the last 6, 8 months, I've called the police department. They say there's nothing that they can do. All that to say that I appreciate everything the city staff has done the past however many months, 4 months, 5 months. I think we're headed in the right direction. I really appreciate all the information that's been sent out by my neighbor, I believe. And just think that this is the right way to go. The ordinance is the right thing to do. Again, appreciate city staff for everything they're doing. And lastly, I just wanted to point out that in the new ordinance or the amended ordinance, it says 10 p.m. I think that's the worst idea ever. And I hope that the Planning Commission will revise the ordinance and bring it back to a reasonable time, like 7, 8 o'clock, which most reputable massage parlors are open only till 7. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker, Curtis Bennett.
Good evening. My name is Curtis Bennett, and I've been working on drawing attention to the illicit massage business IMB issue since February of 24, when many of us met at the library, including Chief Cragen and other city officials, and I sincerely appreciate their support in pursuing this issue. IMBs are run by Chinese criminal enterprises, and they engage in sex trafficking, modern-day slavery. This egregious wrong is a serious human rights violation that deserves our full attention and should not be tolerated in our community. That said, when addressing IMBs, it's vital to ensure legitimate certified massage professionals are not adversely impacted, as these individuals provide a valuable therapeutic service to the public. The California Massage Therapy Council, CAMTC, is an organization created and funded by California Legislative Authority to regulate massage businesses and ensure the highest professional standards in the massage profession. The CAMTC has collaborated with hundreds of municipalities across the state to craft effective ordinances to address IMBs. The CAMTC is the expert in this space. The CAMTC provided the City of Santa Rosa with a list of concerns regarding this draft ordinance. I share these same concerns. 2 of the concerns include: number 1, the draft ordinance says only massage therapists certified by the CAMTC or an equivalent or superior certifying body can practice massage in Santa Rosa. This is nonsensical, as the CAMTC, as authorized by the Massage Therapy Act of 2023, is the only entity permitted to certify massage therapists in California. There are no equivalent or superior certifying bodies. This language causes unnecessary confusion, conflicts with state law, and adds no value to the ordinance. Additionally, organized criminal enterprises could easily set up a fraudulent certifying program with equivalent standards and seek to work in Santa Rosa. Please remove the equivalent superior language. Number 2, the draft ordinance allows 3 or more procedural violations within 2 years before revoking an establishment certification. Why impose constraints when considering discipline? Revocation of establishment certification should be on the table for even a single violation, whether procedural or gross in nature. General tolerance of violations may be exploited by criminal enterprises who swap in straw owners that have clean records. In closing, I ask that you do not vote on this draft ordinance tonight. Put the brakes on it. Consult with the experts. Consider the input that the CAMTC, the experts have put forward, and the city attorney. Make the recommended changes, which are minor in scope, but potentially consequential in terms of preventing conflicts with existing state law and closing loopholes that criminals will exploit. Thank you very much. And thank you for doing what you're doing. It's much appreciated. It's not a criticism, but it's constructive in nature, and I'm very grateful for all you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you. You could state your name for the record if you so choose.
Yes, my name is Jessie Spearings, and I'm a certified massage therapist and have been in Santa Rosa for 17 years. I have seen these massage parlors, as people are, stating, and they are flagrantly, continuing to operate when I have gone through all the legal channels throughout my career. It's very distressing. But I will also say, I read through the draft. I mirror what Curtis said. He picked up some really important points. But the other part of it is, I don't see that there's ever any consequence for these people, the landlords, that are renting to these businesses and know that they are not, that they're, illicit massage businesses and not certified massage therapists. Again, no legitimate massage therapist has neon signs open till walk-ins till 9 or 10 o'clock at night. It's just not reality. We work very hard, but we're not open to just anybody walking in unless you're in the sex trade, and that's unfortunate because there is a lot of sex trafficking going on. But I don't see that there's any consequence to the landlords, and I would love to see that somehow brought in to enforce this more directly. Also, I don't see that there is any kind of information around somebody to call to report, whether it's you're seeing an illicit massage business or as a certified massage therapist, that people are trying to approach you in a sexual manner during your session. This is, I've seen cards that are around town at different businesses that are obviously designed to bring in that kind of trade. And I've had people target me and actually change my card, put it up at different businesses, and had people come in and actually think that's what I do. So I would love to see this more directly, actually, again, not giving 3 chances anymore, because they're not hiding it, what they're doing. We need to really crack down on this activity and create a boundary between us who are working hard to provide a service for people that is holistic and healthy and, especially in our current stressful environment, necessary. So I would love to see this more directly, going after the bad actors, the landlords that are renting just because they're getting money, and these businesses that are still just not hiding what they're doing. At my office, there's at least 5 within 2 or 3 blocks of my office. There's at least 5 within my house out in Larkfield. So it's a problem.
Thank you very much. Are there is anybody else in the audience who'd like to make a public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. And I'm going to start off with some of the questions that our 3 speakers.
Chair Reeves, if I could just.
Yes, sorry.
May I interrupt for just a second?
Yes.
I apologize. Just to clarify, I know there was some confusion about the resolution, and there was a reference to 120 days, and what we were seeing was 180. So I want to make sure that the commission is aware. There was a revised resolution that was uploaded a couple days ago, maybe Monday. So what is there, we've got 3 versions of Resolution 1, the original one that was uploaded, and then we have a red line revised that was uploaded on February 21st, and a final revised, which just eliminates those red lines. It's a clean version. So if you want to quickly see the changes that were made, which includes the change to that 120 days is now 180, you can see it in the red line version.
Thank you. So,
Ms. Jones, it's not uploading on Granicus. I don't have it. And yeah, there's no title of revised resolution, so we don't have that.
yeah, I found the red line version going to the city website.
Yeah, a whole different animal that I don't go to, so we're flying a little blind here.
Okay. Let's see. Madeline?
I will go ahead and check our Granicus and ensure that those are uploaded in just a few moments for you all.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you to the 3 speakers. Appreciate you coming out tonight, or this afternoon. So Mr. Cook talked about the time being open till 10 o'clock. That is also a comment that I had in my notes. I think 10 o'clock is far too late to be open if you're a legitimate massage business. 7 o'clock seems to me perfectly fine. I look at some of the legitimate massage businesses around town, and they're open till 6 or 7 at night. I think 10 o'clock is far too late. So that's a comment. I support Mr. Cook's comment on that, and I think Mr. Bennett might have also said that. And then the question on the violations. I also think that the violation section is not strict enough. So I would like some discussion maybe amongst my fellow commissioners about that, about what we can present to staff as some alternatives on that. And then the question on CAMTC being, let me find that, certification from or through a certifying body deemed equivalent or superior to CAMTC. So are there other bodies such as that? And how would you decide which body would be the one that would be the legitimate body to certify? Yes.
Thank you. So to clarify, CAMTech was created through the Business and Professions Code under something called the Massage Therapy Act. It's section 4600 to 4621 of the Business and Professions Code. That current chapter is set by its own ordinance to sunset on January 1st, 2026. So I have every expectation that it will be renewed. But you heard me speak earlier about the fact that our ordinance was misaligned with the state. And what I did by putting that language in was create a safety net. So if for some reason that Business and Professions Code section is not renewed and it does in fact sunset on January 1st, 2026, it doesn't leave us with an ordinance with no options. At that point in time, we could look at other certifying agencies that may exist at the state or federal level. We would be able to pivot. So under the current Business and Professions Code, CAMTech is the only certifying body. The Business and Professions Code makes it unlawful for a person to represent themselves as a certified massage technician if they do not have that certification through CAMTech. So it's a moot point now, but were that ordinance, that state law to go away, we need to have something as a backup, and that's the reason that's in there.
Thank you. And then Ms. Sperling, I believe that's your last name, sorry. Had a question on consequences to the landlords or the property owners, and then also a number to call to report either somebody walking by and seeing an illicit, what looks like an illicit massage, or if a legitimate massage person is propositioned, for lack of a better word. Will there be a number somewhere that people can access?
There's a number now. It would either be code enforcement or the police department, and that's on our website. Any complaints would come in through those channels, and that would get us started. If I may, I'd like to expound a little bit on the intent of the ordinance.
Yes.
Thank you. So when we look at things like consequences for action, when we look at 3 procedural violations in 2 years, when we look at the complaint process, it's really important to recognize, again, that we strove to create a balance here so that we could get rid of the illicit uses and minimize the impact to the legitimate ones. The way this ordinance is crafted, it will be very difficult for the illicit uses to continue. I'm not even worried about the 3 procedural violations in 2 years. They're not going to be able to get a certificate. If they do, they won't keep it long because they're illicit, and the ordinance is designed to get rid of them. So on that premise, we're looking at what's left over 18 months from now, 2 years from now. It's going to be the legitimate businesses. It's going to be the ones that are doing everything the right way, the people that came to that community meeting and supported what we were trying to do. And because we want to be business friendly, we tried to give them some concessions to make it easier. We don't want to punish them necessarily, well, we don't, for the crimes of, their cousins that don't obey the law. So that was why we had 3 procedural violations in 2 years. A procedural violation is, I renewed my certificate, but it's in the mail and it's not posted yet. That could be a procedural violation. I forgot to pay my business license tax. That would be a procedural violation. We're talking about those sorts of things, and to shut a legitimate business down for human mistakes, while it's within our discretion, I don't think is a best practice. Consequences for landlords. If a massage establishment has its license revoked, they're not able to rent that space out to another establishment for at least a year, possibly for 2 years, depending on why the previous revocation was done. The property owner is also responsible equally in the maintenance of a violation, so they can be cited as part of this if the establishment is illegal and they're refusing to leave, and if the landlord is not cooperating with the city in getting them out, then they're absolutely responsible. So there are consequences for landlords and property owners. Neon signs were brought up. This ordinance specifically prohibits massage establishments from using neon signs or outlining their windows or building architecture in neon. Because of that appearance and because of the public feedback we received from the people that were concerned, you heard it tonight, there's neon everywhere at night. So this ordinance actually prevents massage establishments from using that. So again, what we're doing over time is getting rid of those illicit uses. And we'll have a core of, I don't know, maybe a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen, whatever that number is, of legitimate uses that are in compliance with our code and contributing to our community. And again, I think that our goal was not to overly punish them. So I know I've gone long. Thank you for your latitude. But I want to just make that clarification.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and ask the rest of my questions, if that's okay with, yes.
Just from what the public brought up, Mr. Bennett mentioned that CAMTC wrote a letter with concerns about the ordinance, and it's not in our package. We haven't seen it, so I just wanted to know if you wanted to address anything that was brought up in that.
He covered it fairly well. The concerns were that we have the language for other certifying bodies, and I've explained the reasons why we have that in there. It's not something where someone can come in now and say, hey, I'm certified through Texas or Oklahoma, and we're going to say, okay, you're fine. State law, current state law requires that they go through CAMTech. They have to do that if they represent themselves as a certified massage therapist. Again, we're hedging our bets in case this Business and Professions Code section does actually sunset and is not renewed. CAMTech would go away in terms of state law. So we want to be able to not have to come back and revise our ordinance if that ever happens. His other questions were concerned the procedural violations, which I believe I've addressed, and I believe that was it.
Okay, so Commissioner Horton.
Just follow-up question while we're on the topic. So with the 3 procedural violations issue, I mean, everything you're saying makes total sense to me. Could you address the kind of straw buyer issue, or, you know, if the one owner of the establishment, you know, has 2 procedural violations, but then they flip it to another owner? That was brought up in the public comment just before we move on.
That would so again, the ordinance is set up to discourage that kind of use. For them to change owners, the owner would have to go through a background check. And if they've been in this kind of business for any amount of time, they're not going to pass it. So that's one of the immediate stopgaps. And again, if something is already, if we start to revoke against a establishment and they want to transfer it during that revocation, that's prohibited by the ordinance.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
We're on a roll here with this line of questioning. I'm sorry. So then I guess Mr. Bennett's words are ringing in our ears. What are we, in an attempt to create balance, right? Because you don't want to punish those legitimate operators who've been in good standing. In that attempt, are we, you know, inadvertently allowing an illicit business, because we haven't got them all, right? They're still out there. Are we allowing an illicit business to get legitimate, to then circumvent, or to figure out how to circumvent later on down the road?
Every establishment would need to go through the application process. All of their therapists would need to be CAMTech certified. That certification includes a background check. So the therapists are being background checked. If they've gotten, if they have a record for prostitution or for any of these red light laws or anything else, they're not going to pass. The establishment owners have to go through a background check. Same thing. If we're finding people in the industry, it's unlikely that they will succeed. Now, let's suppose that none of them have ever been caught and they all get their certifications and training in order and we give them an establishment license. We're still going to be here. The ordinance will still apply. There's requirements as to how the interior is laid out. There's hygiene requirements. There's hours of operation, which I hope we can talk about more, and myriad other requirements. And again, they're all designed to make it increasingly difficult for an illicit use and relatively easy for a legitimate one. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
So actually, I think what I'm going to do is go through kind of my questions one by one and then ask my fellow commissioners if they have comments or questions or would be supportive of whatever changes that I would like. So the first one is changing the hours. Like I said, I think 10 o'clock is far too late for a legitimate massage business. 7 o'clock, maybe 8, but 10 o'clock I think is far too late. Any support? Any comments?
I agree. And I think 7 o'clock is an excellent time.
If I can just jump in, can you give us some color on the closure times in neighboring jurisdictions or similar jurisdictions?
Certainly. First of all, 2 jurisdictions that aren't neighboring but that were foundational in our creation of this ordinance were the cities of Benicia and San Rafael. CAMTech made a number of recommendations about cities whose ordinances they were particularly happy with, and we used those as guiding documents. So both of those cities had the same hours of operation that we're proposing until 10 p.m. Within the county of Sonoma, only forgive me, I've forgotten, but I have it written down. Cloverdale, their ordinance allows them to stay open until 10 p.m. None of the other cities in the county, nor the county itself, regulate the hours.
Any other comments around hours, any change, any support? Commissioner Sanders?
In those other jurisdictions, did they have the similar spike in numbers of massage establishments being established at one time?
I'm afraid I did not look into that. I do not know.
Thanks.
Commissioner Carter?
Yeah, Chair Weeks, I could support an earlier closing time. I think 8 o'clock seems reasonable to me.
Yeah, I'm totally comfortable with 7 p.m. or 8 p.m.
Commissioner Pardo?
I think 7 to 8 is reasonable, but no more than 8.
Okay. And Commissioner Cisco?
I think no more than 8 is fine. I mean, there are people that are coming after work.
Right.
Okay.
A question I had for you, which is the fees that will be generated, where is that going? To the general fund, or is it going to be designated for enforcement?
That would be going into the general fund. There is an exception to that, is that there's provisions in the code where if additional inspections are necessary because of a habit of violation or a lot of complaints, and we have to send enforcement officers out more than maybe once or twice a year, the ordinance allows us to recover those fees. And now that I say that, I think those fees would also go into the general fund. So, yes.
Okay. Darn. So one of the questions that I had earlier for you, Mr. Kirk, was a definition of administrative adjustment. I think I understand that the goal to make this consistent with other communities, but I really do feel that that there should be a separate definition of administrative adjustment instead of putting it in, and there is not, stumbling over my words. So I do think there should be a definition for administrative adjustments, and that should be added.
And I've written one, and we'll get it in there for you.
Thank you. Any comments on that?
I'm happy you've written one and it's going to be incorporated.
Thank you. And then section 20-49.04085. And it was a question I had on a list of the massage establishment's employees, and that the therapist, it says therapists and independent therapists who are engaged to perform massage for more than 10 cumulative days within any 30-day period. And your response, I believe, was that that is, that they're not considered then an employee.
They can be considered employee, but they're not. But the massage establishment owner is not required to update the city. There's a series of notification requirements that attach to an establishment certification, and that is that anytime personnel changes, they have to update the city. When people leave, when people come in, we want to have current information. We want to have current certifications. If somebody's coming in for less than 10 days, then they're not subject or bound by that requirement. So this could be a situation where one of their employees is ill and they need to bring someone in. So it's meant to be business friendly. This is not a situation that an illicit massage establishment is going to have.
Is that defined somewhere about that therapist who works less than 10 days is not considered an employee? Is that defined someplace?
It's defined under independent therapist on page 6 of the resolution.
Great, thank you. Sorry, I didn't see that. Let's see what else. Section 20-49.090. Let me see what I said about that. Okay, I know it's here somewhere. I can't remember what I said about that, so forget that. I'll probably come back to that later. Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I did remember it. It's it's A6, and it's an exemption for people who are administering massages or health treatments involving massage at single occurrence athletic, recreational, festival events such as health fairs, farmers market, etc. And I wondered why those would be exempt, and if I'm reading that correctly.
Again, using the guiding ordinances that CAMTech recommended to us, both of them had similar language for allowing them in that sort of thing. Imagine a farmer's market or a sporting event where an Easy Up set up, and we've all seen it, where they've got a massage chair, and you pay $10 and you sit down, and it's visible to everyone. Those types of events are exempted by other cities, and we followed that model.
Okay, thank you. And then the violations, I do think that it's too generous, allowing 3 violations. I think it should be less than that, and I just wondered what my fellow commissioners thought about that.
I agree. I think it could be less, and I guess less is, if we're talking about 3, it'll either be 2 or 1, right? So, you know, having balance, I do believe, is important. Just an adjacent question. Do we know how many of the establishments are owned by single owners? How many of the establishments that exist in Santa Rosa are owned by a single owner? Like, do we know that there's one owner that owns 10 of them? Just out of curiosity.
This is Daniela DeBaca. She's my senior code enforcement officer. She's been working very closely with me on this.
Thank you. Right now, I know offhand, there's only one business owner that owns, I believe, 4 or 5 massage businesses. So in my research, I've not encountered any other business owner that owns more.
And compliant?
No.
Thank you. And I guess the reason I asked that question is if we're talking about, like, you know, it's 3 strikes, you're out kind of thing. If there are multiple places, well, we have 3 strikes at this one place, but I own 4 others. And those strikes would be against a single business and not the entire team, right?
So in all fairness, I've only been able to inspect 2 of those businesses. Both of those businesses were to be found in violation. The others I have not been able to conduct the full inspection on just yet.
So I guess at the end of the day, with my comments, yes, I believe that we could be a little stricter with the number of violations.
Any other comments on that?
If I may suggest, rather than changing the number of violations, we shorten the duration from 2 years to 1 year. That's consistent with some of our other enforcement programs in the city.
Does that, Commissioner Sanders, does that?
It's better, for certain. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, I will go to my fellow commissioners. Any other questions, comments? Commissioner Cisco.
Yeah, Mr. Kirk, could you just sort of generally describe what happens at the end of the 180 days that this is put in place, either maybe even before, but procedurally, are you sending out notifications? I mean, just tell me what you're going to do and how people are going to know what they need to do to get a business license and all that.
Certainly. Any good program is going to be education-based. I like to say that code enforcement is education-based. So that's what we're going to do. Once we have an ordinance that is law, we know what it is, we're going to start some intensive outreach. Now, most of the local massage industry in Santa Rosa, they're already on board. They've been to our meeting. They've been given, they've requested and have been given copies of the draft ordinance. They know what's coming. Our legitimate business community is, they're gonna work in partnership with us. But this is going to be for a legitimate business that maybe still has a therapist that isn't licensed, and it's going to take time for that individual to become licensed. So again, being business friendly, we're going to accommodate that. We're going to allow them to do that. At the same time, that 180 days, keep in mind, is for them to get certified. We're going to be working with them all along if they have other issues. If they're nowhere close to being able to comply because, to apply because they're out of compliance, then we're going to communicate that to them ahead of time. In extreme situations, there will be enforcement. But again, the idea is to bring them up to speed, help them to succeed. The ordinance is going to take care of the bad players, and we're going to work with the rest of them.
And then you did say we aren't aware at this time of the actual number of illicit businesses. Is this going to help ferret that out? I mean, are you going to? I mean, we've had people comment and report tonight. What will happen with that reporting? And then, is this going to help us?
Absolutely.
Discover who those people are.
Absolutely. That'll be part of it. Right now, it's a moving target because we don't even have an ordinance to apply. Yeah. We can say, come in and get your permit. So with this ordinance in place, yes, code enforcement, Daniela and myself most likely will be out. We'll be making stops. We will have handouts to hand out. We're going to be letting people know this is coming. You need to get your house in order. The legitimate ones are 90% there already, and the illicit ones won't be able to do it. So again, we'll work with them. We'll make those stops where necessary, because this is going to increase public interest also. So the coordinated enforcement efforts with code enforcement and the police department, I imagine, will continue. And we're just going to be moving towards that target. Everyone will know. No one will be surprised when it comes and when we either have those applications in hand or have to start enforcement. And there's nothing to prevent someone from applying before then. Okay. It's just that they have to apply by that date. And if somebody wants to apply 30 days from second reading, they're certainly entitled to.
And if I may, Chair, just to give a little more clarity on that point, because I believe that's an incredibly important point. And it was with the massage community, because there is a timeline. At the end of that timeline, you become unlawful. So how do we really navigate in that 180 days? And I think there's a few techniques there, and Mr. Kirk touched on a few of those. We're dedicating resources to providing expedited service to those members of the community. As we go through that process, you really start defining the legitimate massage uses and the illegitimate massage uses, because you're focusing on that cluster next from an enforcement standpoint. But if a legitimate business just gets behind it, right, life gets in the way of certain things, we will reevaluate that towards the back end. Our intention is not to be punitive because people couldn't hit the 80 days. What we really tried to factor in is most businesses should have the appropriate zoning clearances, the appropriate business license. They are an operating business, and most do. So what do they possibly not have? It could be CAMTech licenses, things of that nature to become the certified therapist. So we tried to work those timelines from CAMTech into the process. But we're well aware of the impact that could have on the community, and we're prepared to adjust if we get into that situation. But what we're really trying to do is put a deadline to it so we can sift out the legitimate businesses from potentially those businesses where we'll have to implement more enforcement measures.
Thank you.
I have a follow-on question to Patty's question. How are you going to contact and identify like the owner-operators of like they're certified massage people, they've got all the certification and they work out of their homes. They maybe don't advertise because they've built up a clientele over the years. And how are you going to contact them and tell them what's coming down the pipeline and what they need to do to stay in compliance?
Camtech has been a great partner with reaching out to their certified members and spreading the news. In answer to your question, we're going to use our investigative skills to find them. We're going to use what I used to call the yellow pages, in whatever form that is now. We're going to use Google. We're going to look at business license records. We're going to look at zoning clearance records, and the internet. We're going to be getting complaints from the public. So maybe we don't find all of them in the first round, but eventually we will. We constantly receive complaints about things that we don't know about.
I'm not necessarily thinking about people that are trying to be illicit, but just getting the word out that this is something that they'll need to do in the next 180 days to come forward and apply and, get the proper licensing and all that.
I know that there's going to be articles in the Press Democrat, undoubtedly, and again, we'll have our outreach. We have our website set up. We can look at other tools for notifying, and we're really open to those. This is really at the very beginning of this process, so we'll have that opportunity. I guess I don't have an exact answer to your question, except to say that we're going to do our best to contact each and every one of them.
And Chair, I can give a little more detail because I believe that's another really important point. As Mr. Kirk mentioned, we have developed a list of contact information from resources that are readily available. Those are typically business licenses, zoning clearances, things that we know. Those lists always miss someone. There'll be a number of social media push outs. We're working closely with our CRO team to make sure we get this information out on a regular basis. One of the reasons why I think we are so sensitive about the 180 days is typically the outreach can miss someone, and especially those working in the mobile profession where they may not 100% be working in Santa Rosa. The mobile operations go all over, and so how do we contact those where they're moving in and out and all of a sudden in Santa Rosa they're up against these regulations? So we're going to do our best to really canvass, but we do recognize that we can miss in that, and if we have people come in the back end that say they weren't aware with this process and they're legitimately trying to go through it, that's an area where potentially we would look at a carve out on that 180 days in the future. We're just really trying to understand what that looks like.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Sanders.
Just out of curiosity, what type of violation would you see for a legitimate establishment? What are some of the garden variety violations that a legitimate business might run against?
It could be something as simple as not having certificates posted. Maybe the certificates are posted, but some of them are expired and just haven't been replaced. Okay. I think most of the legitimate ones aren't going to have any issues with our hygiene requirements. We do have requirements about services being posted, hours of operation being posted, that they may or may not necessarily, and that's not a reflection on whether they're doing a good job or not. It's just a new rule. We're trying to go in surgically. We're looking at the major issues. I'm not going to look at what kind of ambient music they're playing or whether they're using turmeric in their aromatherapy or anything like that. But we want to make sure that they're hitting all of those major requirements.
Okay. And lastly, when, as it stands right now, 3 violations in a 2-year period, hopefully we'll change that. Are those open violations or is there a mitigation standard? Like, I had 2 violations, but I mitigated them both, so now I'm back to 3?
Think of them as strikes. Even if you mitigate the violation, it is a strike.
Okay. Thank you.
I did 2 quick questions from me. One was on the shrinking the 2-year period for the 3 violations to 1 year. And maybe I'm totally missing the point here, but it strikes me that that's actually more lenient on the bad actor, because then if they commit 2 violations within 1 year and then the 3rd violation in the 1st month of the 2nd year, that would have been punishable under the current construction, but now wouldn't be. So,
Commissioner Horton, you were absolutely correct.
Thanks. No.
I had it backwards. Thank you for catching that.
Yeah. And one thing that strikes me, this may or may not be how these types of things are written up, could there be an option for, as it is now, if there's 3 within 2 years, that leads to the consequences, but the city staff have discretion to take action after 1 or 2, depending on the situation?
We have a lot of discretion built into this ordinance. Discretion really is the heart and soul of good enforcement practice. But when it comes to this, you need to have a hard and fast consequence built into the ordinance. And that takes staff out of the equation. That takes any allegations of unfairness or preferential treatment out of the equation. So it's really important to have those hard limits built into the ordinance.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question was, just, you had alluded to some best practices or guidelines from CAMTech. Can you speak a little to both that and the public meetings that were held and the feedback, we received there, and just, what went into this? Anything you'd like to add about what went into the policies that are in here?
I was not in attendance at the very first meetings. It wasn't on my radar right away. I know my senior officer, Daniela, was at some of the early meetings, but I don't know that any of us were at the very first one. But we, as a city, became aware of these concerns and the elevated nature of them. And by the time I did go to my first public meeting, I know that people were scared, people were angry, people had a perception that the city wasn't doing anything, when in fact we were trying to do things, but we just needed a better ordinance. Moving forward to the community meeting we had with the massage industry in town. CAMTech, again, was a great partner in getting the word out to them. Some of the focus that CAMTech communicated was on, at the time we were proposing not to allow mobile massage. We had some other more stringent requirements, and they came in and they educated us. It wasn't an argument, it was an education. And they explained why mobile massage is important. For example, dealing with people that can't get out of their homes because of physical problems. And they opened our eyes to that, and we heard them, and we said, we do want to be business friendly, and you're not the people we're worried about anyway. So we made a lot of adjustments to our ordinance based upon the information we gleaned at that meeting. At the end of the meeting, they were thanking us. They were shaking our hand on the way out. It was a really positive meeting. When going in, we really didn't know what it was going to be like. So I call it a win.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, so since we want to do some changes, I believe, to the ordinance, can either Ms. Jones or Ms. Crocker walk me through how to proceed?
Okay, hello. We were just having listened to some of the comments and concerns and that you guys were raising, as well as members of the public, about the definitions of certified massage therapists and the issue around CAMTech or another designated certifying body. We could have a suggestion for your consideration that would, this is on page 5 of at least my copy under definitions, the definitions of certified massage therapist. And then down the page further is the definition of certifying body. So certified massage therapist could instead mean any individual certified as a certified massage therapist by CAMTech or another state certified body designated pursuant to Business and Professions Code section 4600 et sec. And then delete the rest of that sentence and then pick up with pertaining to this chapter. So that would remain. So the purpose of that change would be to clarify that any other certifying body would also be a certifying body as designated by the state, such that if the Business and Professions Code were to change or sunset, it would be another body designated by the state.
4600 is the one that would sunset, so there wouldn't be any 4600.
Okay. And then the definition of certifying body could instead be CAMTech or another, what did I say? State certified body as designated pursuant to Business and Professions Code. So the idea being just to clarify that it's CAMTech, or if the state revises Business and Professions Code to designate another body, then that would be also an appropriate certifying body. So that's for consideration and discussion.
That makes sense to everybody? Okay.
That was it for that one. Ms. Jones, would you like to address how they might want to go through this, or I can keep talking? Go ahead.
So two additional ones that I heard, and I'm sure there may be more, so I'd like to get a consensus from the commission beyond this, but was changing of the, well, I guess I'm going to start back since we were on the definitions. I heard a request to add a definition for administrative adjustment, correct? Okay, and so Mr. Kirk has already provided some draft language, and so I'll read that now. Administrative adjustment means the process by which certain massage-related uses, as defined in this title, may receive use-specific relief from certain strict regulations contained in sections 20-49.040, 20-49.050, and 20-49.060 of this chapter, offering flexibility while maintaining the code's overall intent. Administrative adjustments have director-level review authority, but may be deferred to the Planning Commission. Any concerns with that?
Is that everybody okay with that? Okay.
Okay. And then the other one was the hours of operation, and I think I heard correctly. So right now the code says 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., and I think what I heard the commission agree upon was 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Is that correct?
Does that work? Okay.
Okay, so that is under section 20-49.050B, hours of operation, and I think that's the only location in the ordinance.
Pages 12 and 13.
Okay, so we can make that change. Are there other?
Jessica, what page was that on?
12 and 13 of your resolution.
And then the other one was the issue around violations.
Oh, the number of violations,
Yeah.
yes. So I think Mr. Kirk suggested keeping it at 3 violations. Sorry, you guys are a little blurry unless I have these on. 3 violations, but 1 year rather than over a 2-year period. But I know I heard from the commission a thought to make it less than 3, so I'll let you deliberate that.
Commissioner Sanders?
I'd be actually more interested in having it be 2 violations over 2 years.
Can you, maybe Mr. Kirk, talk us through examples and kind of pros and cons of 2 and 2 years versus 3 and 2 years versus 3 and 1 year?
Well, it shows a pattern. It shows a pattern of noncompliance over time, which is important. I think that everybody makes mistakes, and I think when we're trying to be business friendly and supportive of our business community, we have to recognize that mistakes are made. But at the same time, you have to manage your mistakes, you have to manage your business, and you have to manage your compliance with the ordinance. So the original thought of so to take a sidestep, our short-term rental ordinance has 3 violations in a 12 consecutive month period. So we wanted to make it stronger than that, and that's why we did 3 violations within a 2-year period, which is, it's a long time. So after 24 consecutive months, then the oldest one would drop off, but they'd still have the other 2. You're looking at it in steps as you would. So again, these are minor classes of violation. You've seen the gross violations. You know that the gross violations, any one of those will shut you down immediately. These are, as the name implies, they're procedural. They're things like, forgetting to pay your business license, not having things posted that you should. Again, our legitimate businesses, I don't think, are going to have a problem with these, whereas ones that are illicit and they're trying to fly under the radar and hide from these regulations, they're not going to be able to keep up appearances and make that work. Really, whatever the commission desires. If you want to make it 3 within a 3-year period, that's certainly harsher. That's stronger.
So you said that if you would have 3 and then the 2-year period's up, one of them drops off.
Yeah, we're talking about consecutive.
Okay.
So if there's one violation in January of this year, and then a second violation in January of next year, and then a third violation the January of the following year, that would happen at the same time that the oldest one drops off, so they'd still be at 2. Does that make sense?
So as they cure the violation, it drops off?
It cures out of it doesn't count if it's not within a consecutive 2-year period. So if 3 violations occur within a set 24-month period, then that would trigger revocation. If they have 2 violations within a 24-month period and 1 violation outside of that by a month, then the older one would drop off and they'd still have 2. It's not intended to dog them forever. Right. The idea is that this is 3 opportunities to correct issues and become compliant and run in accordance and learn about the ordinance and make your mistakes and not be penalized for them.
And as you said, these are the procedural violations, not the gross violations.
Correct. The gross violations, any single one of them at any time is an automatic triggering of revocation.
So comments, ideas, Vice Chair?
I think as explained with the procedural versus the gross, I'm fine with the 3 over the 2-year period. And I also just wanted to ask the question on the hours of operation section. I just assume everything else that was tied to the original 10 p.m. is going to be pushed up, so like the 8.
Yes, and actually, yeah, we were just looking at that. So yes, all the ones that identify 10 p.m. will change to 8 p.m. and so that's in subsections B1 and 2, and then subsection B3 is when the patrons need to be vacated, and so we would change that to 8:30 instead of 10:30, and then B5 is when custodial and maintenance staff can come in, and so right now it identifies 1 hour after closing and 1 hour before opening, so we would change that. Instead of 11 p.m., it would be 9 p.m.
Perfect.
And so the issue of the violations, so do you want to, what's the thought? Commissioner Cisco?
I think we leave it as it's written. After hearing Mr. Kirk describe it, I mean, we're looking for harsh, and maybe our adjustment was going to make it less harsh, but thanks to Commissioner Horton, we found out not a good idea.
Any other comments on the violation issue? Commissioner Sanders?
I don't want to forego the good in search of the perfect, and this is a really good piece of work, so I will not die on that hill, though I do believe that we have a sudden proliferation of this in our community, and we need to put a stop to it. Right? And so whatever does that and does not allow someone who's illegally operating an opportunity to get legitimate so that they can continue to illegally operate, that's what I'm concerned about. So I will concede and say 2 years, 3 violations.
Okay, and if you found that was not working when you're doing enforcement with code enforcement and police, you can always revise it, correct?
If you'll allow us to come back and see you, yes.
Anytime. Okay, so any other comments before I ask somebody to read the first resolution? Commissioner Cisco?
For the benefit of whoever does read the resolution, Mr. Kirk, could you repeat so it's in the record and we don't have to remember it and stick it where it goes, what you told us about the sections that needed to be amended? If you could do that clearly, and then whoever reads the resolution can just incorporate that.
I think Ms. Crocker might, or,
I believe that Ms. Jones already has
oh,
that.
You've got that, okay.
okay. Okay, so who would like to read the resolution?
I had a feeling.
Chair?
I'll read it if I don't have to remember all the changes. Okay, so
I'm sorry, let me.
Would
so
you
we
like
have
us to read in?
We have two resolutions.
Would you like us to read the changes
yes.
with the sections so
Okay.
that then you can just say that?
Okay, so the first changes are to the definitions section, and this is 20-49.020 definitions. The first is administrative adjustment is being added, and that would mean the process by which certain massage-related uses as defined in this title may receive use-specific relief from certain strict regulations contained in sections 20-49.040, 20-49.050, and 20-49.060 of this chapter, offering flexibility while maintaining the code's overall intent. Administrative adjustments have director-level review authority, but may be deferred to the Planning Commission. The next is an amendment to the existing proposed definition of certified massage therapist or therapist. And the revised definition would read, means any individual certified as a certified massage therapist by CAMTech or another state certified body designated pursuant to California Business and Professions Code section 4600 et sec. Pertaining to this chapter, the terms masseur, masseuse, certified massage practitioner, or independent therapist or practitioner shall have the same meaning as certified massage therapist or therapist when certified from or through a certifying body. And then the third one in the definitions is certifying body, and this revision to this definition will read, means CAMTech or other state certified body designated pursuant to California Business and Professions Code, section 4600 et sec. Okay, and then the next section is an amendment to section 20-49.050B1. We will be changing the hours of operation to read 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Same thing for subsection B2. Massage commenced prior to 8 p.m. shall nevertheless terminate at 8 p.m. Subsection B3. All patrons will need to be vacated by 8:30 p.m. And subsection B5 is regarding the custodial maintenance, and that would be between the hours of 9 p.m. and 6 a.m.
So I will move a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Santa Rosa, making findings and determinations and recommending to the City Council amendments to Title 6 and Title 20 of the Santa Rosa City Code by repealing Chapter 6-32 entitled Massage Therapy, Massage Business or Establishment in its entirety, adding a new Chapter 20-49 entitled Massage Regulation and Massage Establishment Registration, amending sections 20-23.030 and 20-24.030 regarding permitting requirements for massage-related uses, amending sections 20-50.020A, 20-52.060, and 20-62.030B2 by adding administrative adjustment provisions and amending sections 20-70.020 regarding definitions of massage-related uses and business service, and the language as read into the record by Ms. Jones.
Yes, and may I add one more?
Sure.
We just remembered that Mr. Kirk had identified 2 errors that we needed to add, and I'm seeing some nodding heads, so you guys remembered before I did, so thank you. So this is to section 20-49.090B4. At the end of that section, we need to correct the reference to read reference to section 20-49.090B3 above. And then for section 20-49.090D2, again, the reference at the end of that section that references an above, or excuse me, a below section, we need to add, so it should read 20-49.090D3 below.
Okay.
That's it.
With those additions, and I'll waive further reading.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Cisco, second. Oops. So comments, and so we'll start with Commissioner Cisco. Any final comments or any other comments?
I have no other comments. I think we've worked it pretty well.
And can you make all the required findings?
And I can make all of the required findings. Thank you.
Commissioner Pardo.
I have no further questions, and I can make all the required findings.
Thank you. Commissioner Carter.
Yeah, I'm in support of the ordinance as amended herein, and I can make all the required findings.
Thank you. Commissioner Sanders.
Nice work. Really great job. And I can make all the required findings.
And Commissioner Horton.
Thank you. I can make all the required findings.
Thank you. And Vice Chair.
I can also make all the required findings.
And I also can make all the required findings. So that's on the first resolution. It was moved by the Vice Chair, seconded by Commissioner Cisco.
And we'll go for a vote. Thank you. Commissioner Carter?
Aye.
Commissioner Cisco?
Aye.
Commissioner Horton?
Aye.
Commissioner Pardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Sanders?
Aye.
Vice Chair Duggan?
Aye.
Chair Weeks?
Aye. So that passes with 7 ayes. And then the second resolution is regarding the amendments regarding adult entertainment businesses. So do we have somebody who'd like to enter that resolution?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's give our vice chair a break. There were a lot of numbers you read there. I move a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Santa Rosa making findings and determinations and recommending to City Council amendments to Title 20 of the Santa Rosa City Code to amend sections 20-23.030 and 20-24.030 regarding permitting requirements for adult entertainment businesses, and await the reading of the text.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. So that was moved by Commissioner Sanders and seconded by Commissioner Carter. So we'll go ahead and start with Commissioner Carter then for any comments or.
I can support the ordinance as is presented, and I can make all the necessary findings.
Thank you. Commissioner Sanders.
I can make all the required findings.
Thank you. Commissioner Horton.
I can make all the required findings. Thank you.
Vice Chair.
Looking around.
Sorry.
I can make all the required findings.
Thank you. Commissioner Cisco.
I can also make all of the required findings.
And Commissioner Pardo.
I too can make all the required findings.
Thank you. So that was moved by Commissioner Sanders, seconded by Commissioner Carter. If we could have a vote.
As we start the vote, Commissioner Carter?
Aye.
Commissioner Cisco?
Aye.
Commissioner Horton?
Aye.
Commissioner Pardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Sanders?
Aye.
Vice Chair Duggan?
Aye.
Chair Weeks?
Aye. So that passes with 7 ayes. And I know that this is going to the council on Tuesday. Do you have enough time to get this, posted with the revised agenda and all, or revised ordinance?
We do. We figured there would be changes. It's a very complicated document. We really appreciate the feedback and the willingness to work through it with both the community and the commission, and we are prepared to make those changes and bring it forward to council on Tuesday.
Thank you very much. So with that, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting.